More on the coronavirus and the latest and where we are. I want to bring in our guest. Joining us right now is Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner, CNBC contributor. He also serves on the boards of Illumina and Pfizer. Good morning.
Thanks.
You. Okay, so here we are. It's now moving into other countries in ways that we had not imagined. There's still questions about what it's really going to happen here. The market's completely, I don't want to say completely sold off, but we had a big sell-off yesterday. Are we overestimating the situation or underestimating the situation right now?
Well, I think it still has a ways to go. It's still going to burn its way through other countries, and we're probably just detecting a small fraction of what's going on in Italy, Iran, South Korea. Japan seems to have more spread than what's apparent right now. Right. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. And here in the United States, we don't have diagnostic capabilities. We're really...
So when President Trump tweets out that all is fine here, all is fine or not?
Well, we could have spread here in the United States and not be detecting at this point. What we're dependent upon right now is looking at epidemiological data. So we're looking at incidence of flu, that people who come in who say they have the flu, or doctors think they have the flu, but they don't test positive for the flu.
Right.
We're also looking at data on physicians ordering diagnostic tests for respiratory illnesses, like a platform called BioFire. You order that when someone has a serious respiratory illness, you don't know what it is, and they're looking at the rates of those tests getting ordered and indeterminate results where they don't get back a positive result for anything. So they're looking at data like that, and that data would say, well, some other respiratory pathogen must be circulating in the population. The problem with that data, and I'll pause here, is it's 1 to 2 weeks lagging, and you probably need thousands of cases really to detect the signal. If you have dozens or maybe hundreds of cases in a city, you might not detect the signal that way.
Would it help to have, again, coronavirus testing available in some of the major cities like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles?
Well, that's the challenge. We don't have a diagnostic test that works right now. South Korea has tested about 35,000 people to find their 900 cases. We've tested cumulatively about 500 people. Our diagnostic capability probably isn't more than maybe 50 to 100 tests a day at best, because all the tests need to be shipped to the CDC right now. So we need, there's 5 state labs that are doing this, but they're small. We need to get more diagnostic capability.
But my worry here is that you're effectively saying you think it's much worse even here already.
Well, I don't think that there's thousands of cases. I think we would see that. You would see unusual respiratory illnesses being admitted to the ICUs. That would get reported. CDC would then go in and test those cases. You could have some small, low-level spread, and then it becomes harder to put out small outbreaks if you don't detect them early.
I mean, we keep hearing that we don't know exactly how many people have it, so we can't get a decent idea of the mortality rate. And we also hear that it's very low if you're not over 70 or compromised in some other way. And yet we hear about people 30, 40 years old succumbing to it as well. Does it come back for a second chance? Is it an immune response, the sepsis response?
That might be it. It might be a cytokine storm, a cytokine type release. Probably the case fatality rate is going to be much lower than the 2%. My guess is it'll end up being 0.2 to 0.5%, which is still very high. Flu is 0.1 or less.
But of that 0.2 to 0.5, how much is elderly people?
It'll skew older, and young people, kids under the age of 10 aren't getting this infection.
If you're 40 to 50, 30 to 50.
Kids under 10, I've heard that, but that's really, kids under 10 are not
Well, if you look
infection.
at the people who've been diagnosed in China, they put out very good statistics. They have very few cases under 10. That doesn't mean that kids aren't getting it. It means kids aren't getting sick enough to be identified. There does seem to be an idiosyncratic response here where some people just get very sick. Typically, like with flu or other diseases, you see sort of a spectrum of illness. Here, it's kind of a barbell. You either don't get sick or you get very sick.
Yesterday, we had Warren Buffett on. He told us that he's been speaking with Bill Gates about this. And one of the concerns that's come up is the idea that they don't think necessarily this is killed off by warmer weather, by the spring or the summer approaching. What do you know on that front?
Well, we don't know, but this is now propagating in warm climates. I mean, Italy's pretty warm right now. It's 60 degrees. Singapore is 90 degrees, and you saw it spread. Typically, coronaviruses don't circulate in the summer, but when you have something that's very novel, it can continue to circulate because people have no cross-immunity. Now, hopefully you'll see it start to decline in the summer, but then it could pick back up again in the fall. And that's what happened with H1N1, if you remember. It came in the spring, continued to spread in the summer, dropped off, and then came back in the fall. But by then we had a vaccine.
Let me ask you a question. There was a big Time article yesterday speculating about what happens to the Olympics this summer. Because the Olympics will have a huge business impact. By the way, it would have an impact on this network, on this company. It would have an impact on all of Japan. It's a widespread. If you are running the Olympics right now, what are you thinking?
Well, that's a ways off. But I'll tell
you. But you just said if it runs through the summer and it's going to be warm, So I'm asking the question.
Well, this hasn't gotten into a lot of developed countries where I think people aren't prepared for it, including the United States. I don't think people here are anticipating that we could get spread in the United States right now. I do think Japan probably has a bigger problem than what they're identifying right now. South Korea is doing a good job servicing the cases. Singapore did an excellent job. I don't know that Japan is doing as good of a job servicing their cases. They seem to have a lot of sporadic spread that they can't trace back to a source. That's a signal that they probably have more spread in their country that you're just not identifying.
We've seen expedited, and you were at the FDA, expedited drug approval. For a vaccine, couldn't there be an expedited testing process if we decided we really wanted, and with what we know about molecular biology and everything else right now, we ought to be able to quickly get some candidates. Couldn't we quickly get a vaccine much quicker than in the past, or is it bogged down by producing enough of the vaccine?
Well, the manufacturing is a challenge. This is a coronavirus. It might be more difficult to make a vaccine against a coronavirus, and it might not work as well. We don't have a lot of experience doing it.
The common cold is tough enough.
Right. With H1N1, with the flu, we knew how to make a flu vaccine, so we're able to crack.
But it's a small genome, and it's totally, we already know exactly what.
The vaccine might not offer sustained protection.
Right.
People can get reinfected with this.